Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Wednesday. We got this right? Today, all of our guests, including J-Pat, standing by, brought to you by the Alberni Power and Marine RPM Group. Located in Port Alberni, Alberni Power and Marine is one of Vancouver Island's most trusted boat dealerships, the largest Mercury Marine dealership in Canada. Their service team just won for the fourth consecutive year a CSI, that's a Customer Satisfaction Index score, above the national average. Make your appointment today for the 2022 boating season at albernipowermarine.com. Canucks in Vegas tonight. Canucks playing the Knights for a second straight game. From the Rink-wide podcast, it's Sakaris and Price. Joining us now to talk Canucks is Jeff Paterson, as always on a Wednesday. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm good, guys. Again, thanks for having me on. But story of my life, I'm always late to the party. So I missed out yesterday. I'm a Wednesday guest, not a Tuesday guy. But congrats on a year. It's just incredible to see what you guys have put together. I'm a regular viewer, not only a contributor, but always good for a laugh. And it meant a ton to me when you reached out early on in this process that you had a spot for me on the show. So here's to your first year and a whole bunch more. A great addition to the sports landscape in Vancouver and throughout the province.
No brainer to have you aboard, Jeff. Speaking of being a regular customer of back in the day, I would imagine like everybody else who grew up in BC, you watched, listened to Tom Larscheid. It's his 82nd birthday today. What are your memories of Tom?
Yeah, as a kid growing up, listening to him and Jim and just this idea of these guys that got to talk about and describe Canucks hockey on the radio was incredible. And honestly, they are two of my role models and two of the guys that absolutely put me on this path to get into this business. So I go way back, first of all, as a young child listening, and then I heard you guys talking about it. I mean, I didn't get the chance to work with Jim, but certainly have encountered Jim many times over the years at hockey games, but had the chance to work with Tom Larscheid, which is incredible. And Donnie, you kind of stole my thunder because as much as I love Tom's passion, and he got it, you laid out his background. He was never an expert. He'd be the first to tell you what he was. He was a passionate guy that understood the fan base. There was a lot of Jason Botchford there as well, right? Like Botch connected to the fans that same way. Tom he got it. He understood the fans. He knew that the fans wanted this team to win. But some of my favorite Tom moments were when he carved the team, and he could do it. But it was funny because I witnessed it firsthand in the broadcast booth. He'd do it with, he'd finish his rant, and then there was that little twinkle in his eye, and he knew that it was showbiz and it was to get a reaction. And he did a terrific job of that. So he had the heartbeat, the pulse of the fan base always when it came to this hockey club, and he was a showman, and he was a great entertainer and a ton of fun to be around both on and off the mic.
Yeah, he knew who he was talking to. I think there's so many people in our business, you worry about what the bosses are thinking. I think the bosses, and I know, Rick, you feel the same way, and Jeff, you feel the same way. The bosses are the people listening and watching.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my little rant. What are you looking for in these last 12 games from the Canucks, Jeff?
Well, I'd like to see them get off to a decent start in one of them. That would be a nice change. It really is going to be one of the storylines when we review this season at year's end is just, and again, Sunday against Vegas. It wasn't just that they were down 1-0. The shots were 10-1 and the shot attempts were 16-1, and why they can't get up and running for these games. It's beyond Bruce Boudreau. It seems to be beyond the players as well, but they're the ones that are responsible. If you can't get up for a game in Vegas, and I know that daylight's fading on their playoff chances, but come on, this is Vegas. It's T-Mobile Arena. The Knights are starting to play well. I think people there are going to respond and sort of push them into the playoffs. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go to a game in Vegas, but the warm-up, the music's at 15 on a scale of 1 to 10. The showgirls that are in the aisles behind the visitors' net, like it is such an event. And I've talked to a number of players. Like it's already become one of their favorite places to play. So the Golden Knights are going to be into it early on. This game has significance for them, and hopefully the Canucks can match. And I guess we'll have to wait to see at the morning skate who's going to be available to them. I hope Quinn Hughes is in the lineup, but if he's flying on game day, I think that makes him questionable at best. But when you ask what am I looking for, Donnie, He's still in hot pursuit of two long-standing franchise records, the single assists for a defenseman and points by a defenseman. And I hope that he can rewrite the record book. He's going to over the course of his career, but he's gone quiet here. And now with the flu, Quinn Hughes has 2 points in his last 6 games. That's not the Quinn Hughes that we know as an offensive producer. So I'm watching him on the hunt, but he's got to be in the lineup to continue that quest. So we'll chart that. And if he's not, does that open the door for Jack Rathbone? Or you have to keep in mind, Jack Rathbone really is only a name to Bruce Boudreau. He's never seen this player play. And they had 6 healthy defensemen at practice yesterday with Dermott and Hunt on the left side along with OEL. So might they ask Jack Rathbone just to watch tonight? Could they slide him into Arizona, back half of back-to-back? So I know he's on the roster. He got the call. That's great. But I don't know that it's as simple as he's up. He's going to get plugged in right away.
Yeah, I'd sure love to see Rathbone get some good ice the rest of the way, Jeff. Hey, our poll question is about Brock Boeser. And I know, Jeff, you're the king of stats. You always come up with good stuff. But Boeser, 2 goals in his last 12, but it's the 5-on-5 production. If you want to get paid in the National Hockey League, you got to produce top 6 guys 5-on-5. What do you see has been wrong with his season this year, Jeff?
Yeah, and you're right, Rick. I mean, 10 power play goals among the team leaders in that regard, and that's great. But most of the game is still played at even strength, and you've got to be a 5-on-5 producer. And so you look at his 19 goals, 10 on the power play, 1 into an empty net. That leaves 8 goals at even strength over the course of the season. He played 64 games. He's supposed to be a goal scorer. Like, we know that he's not a physical player, and he doesn't win faceoffs, and he doesn't kill penalties. His best skill is to put the puck in the net, and he just hasn't done it, not nearly enough. And so when you look at even strength production, he's got 21 even strength points. Vasily Podkolzin has 16. Juho Lammikko has 15. Like, Brock Boeser shouldn't be in the conversation with those kinds of players at this stage of their career. I mean, hopefully Podkolzin, he's just hitting the ground running here. But the point is that they need a whole lot more from Brock Boeser. And so they got to figure out, why it hasn't gone right for him. And he's not alone in this regard, guys. You look at who scores the goals for this team. It's JT Miller and it's Bo Horvat. And it was only those 2 guys on Sunday against Vegas. That was the 3rd time in the last 7 games that Horvat and Miller are the only guys to score for the Vancouver Canucks. They get nothing from their wing. We know about Connor Garland in his 17 games, but Tanner Pearson's gone ice cold. Podkolzin hasn't scored since the Islanders game on that road trip. You mentioned Boeser, 2 in his last dozen games. This is crunch time. They need guys to step up and score. And so, it's not a real surprise that this team that has been pushing so hard for the better part of 4 months has sort of faded here, but 3 wins in their last 13 hockey games as they've fallen off the pace. But yeah, Brock Boeser. I mean, we know the storyline with the contract and the qualifying offer and everything else. Is he part of the future here moving forward? That's going to be one of the big picture decisions that this management group has to decide. But Brock Boeser hasn't given them a whole lot to, think fondly of him by in terms of first impressions. He got the Bruce bump right away, right? Like, when Bruce took over, he scored 5 goals in his first 6 games, but then he has tailed off. So, so many questions surrounding his future. I know your poll question is he done as a Canuck? I thought he was done after the second period, and then he showed up and was back in the third.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to write him off entirely. We just don't know the extent of the injury, but he's not on the strip. He's not going to play these next 2, and then that leaves 10 games to go. So we'll see if Brock Boeser finds his way back into the lineup.
I believe it's 0-14, 0 goals in 14 games for Podkolzin, Jeff. But I look at deployment lately. Is his stock on the rise? He's played well.
I thought he was their best skater, Donnie, on Sunday against Vegas. In on the forecheck, hounding defensemen, turning pucks over. And so you're right. Would you like him? He's had some chances here to put a puck in the net. They could use goals, obviously. But I've been encouraged by a lot of what I've seen from Vasily Podkolzin. Now, the numbers don't jump off the charts at you. And you look at a guy like Trevor Zegras, who was taken 1 pick ahead of him and has a bunch more goals in his rookie season. And there are others. But I think, you expect that this is a guy who's going to grow into a well-rounded game, use that size, be physical, hasn't looked out of place at all when you think of who the Canucks have played here recently: Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas, St. Louis, and now Vegas. These are all good, big, heavy teams, and I think it's brought the best out in Vasily Podkolzin. And so when I went to practice yesterday and without Brock Boeser, I was curious to see who was going to be in the top 6. and it was Jason Dickinson on the line with Bo Horvat. Come on. Like, there's 12 games to go. Like, sprinkle a little sugar on this kid, give him an opportunity, put him in the top 6 and let him play with legitimate offensive players. It has been such a disappointing season for Jason Dickinson. Why Bruce Boudreau thinks that Jason Dickinson is going to be the answer on Bo Horvat's wing is beyond me. Hopefully that experiment doesn't last too long, and I do hope that Vasily Podkolzin gets a chance to play a regular shift in the top 6 here over the final 3 weeks.
He's spoken fondly of Dickinson since he got here, Boudreau, versus Höglander and other players he's criticized. Jeff, thanks for this. You kept your mouth guard in through the whole interview. I know yesterday you criticized Matthew Tkachuk for always chewing on his mouth guard.
I said, like, I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it's just one of those things. I mean, I know he's not alone. Like, I'm singling him out, but there are lots of guys. Patrick Kane's done it for years as well, but there's just something about Matthew Tkachuk. But, like, it has a function. Use it. Put it in. Keep it in. And just, no need to chew on it constantly every time the camera is on his face.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and you're absolutely right. He's not alone. My kids, they played flag football.
That's it.
They do the same thing.
Yeah,
it's never where it's supposed to be. They just chew on it. The problem is, Jeff, it looks cool. It looks cool to kids. But come on, kids, put those mouth guards.
Hey, Jeff, if it bothers you, quit watching the Flames.
Well, I guess
that's all you got to do.
There's also the fact that I wouldn't have a clue what's cool, so maybe I'm not the best judge of this.
You've got a teenage son, you should know. Come on.
Should know.
I have a slight idea because I have a couple of teenage sons. Jeff, thanks for joining us, not just today, but over the past year. It's been a blast. Thank you so much.
All right, congrats again, guys.
Okay, Jeff Paterson, a regular on our show since
great guy.
Day one, and of course back on our 1040 days, and we all go back with Jeff. We can't thank him enough.